Hey, how are you doing? It's Alan here from Looking for Warriors, and I want to ask you a question. Did you know that we only use 10% of our brains? Did you know that? Have you heard that? We only use 10% of our brains. And when you heard that, did you say, that's interesting? How do you measure a percentage of your brain? Have they dissected the brain and seen what part of the 10% that we use? How do they measure that? The 10% of your brain. And how do you measure your brain? Is your brain all contained within your head? Is there intelligence in other parts of your body? And the unconscious mind, where is that? Where's the unconscious mind? Those thoughts you have when you sleep, is that still in your brain? And when you're on a bike going really fast and a fly flies towards your eye really quickly and your hand moves before you think, is there some intelligence in your hand that makes your hand move? This is a myth that we use 10% of our brains. Like, for example, let's say I've never worked out before, and am I using 10% of my muscles? And then when I've been working out for 2 years, am I using 100% of my muscles then? Or was I always using 100% of the muscle capacity that I had? The reason I mention this is a myth that people hear and they say, well, they say, whoever they is, they say they only use 10% of our brains. But we don't ask the questions. We've been programmed in schools not to ask the questions. We just have to regurgitate the information. So we get asked the question, how much of your brain do people generally use? We have to say 10% without answering, without asking the question, well, how do you define 10%? How do they define a percentage of the brain? And what does it mean to use it? What are the parts that are switched off? Did you know that only 5% of communication is the words you say? Really? How do you define a percentage of communication? How do they break that down? What's 100% communication? If I'm talking louder, am I doing 100% communication? Or if I move my hands around, am I now doing 100% communication? I'm just mentioning this because it is information from authority. Persuasion from authority. And if we hear information from authority, do we just accept it? Or should we ask the question, well, what does that mean? How is that defined? What is the percentage of communication? What is the percentage of your brain? And where is your brain? Is it all contained in the head, or is some of your brain in the ether? Is some of your thinking coming from, where does inspiration come from? When you get an idea out of nowhere, where did that come from? And is part of your brain connected into God or into the universe or into the ether? Do new ideas, a new Tesla, when he found out that there was fields that we couldn't see, and electrical fields out there. How did he get those ideas? Where did they come from? Was he using 100% of his brain? So what I'm saying is, ask the questions. Don't accept things just because I say it or someone else, or a doctor says it, or someone in authority says it, or someone who has letters after the name say it. Don't accept it. Ask the questions. Because we've got to break out that programming a little bit. We've all got a little bit of programming of, well, someone in authority said it, a doctor said this, or a scientist said this. And there's nothing wrong with science, there's nothing wrong with doctors. But when we accept what they say without asking any questions, that's then scientism. Where we won't, I think science is amazing. I'm glad that I'm able to put these videos onto the internet for you to watch. And most of you are watching magically through invisible fields that are coming into your phone or coming into your computer. So I'm glad we have science, but we need to question. Most people will question a football manager. They'll question the decisions of a football manager. But when the important scientific statements are made, or important medical statements are made they will never question, because that's what they say. They say we use 10% of our brain. Ask the question. This is Alan here from Looking for Warriors.